The quiet financial habit that builds more wealth than a high salary at work. Maybe on a Wednesday, maybe on a Thursday, one of those days that doesn't have a lot of personality. And you just got a notification that your paycheck hit. And it's a good paycheck. Like, by any reasonable measure, you are earning decent money. More than your parents did at your age, more than you thought you'd be making when you were 22 and slightly delusional about how fast things would move. And you open your banking app, almost out of habit, and you look at the number, and then you close it. Because the number in savings, the number that's supposed to be quietly accumulating into something that eventually means something, it's just kind of sitting there, not growing the way it should be, not shrinking dramatically either, just kind of there. And there's this low-grade background hum of a question you can't quite shake. I'm doing okay, so why doesn't it feel like it's adding up?
I'm Rick, and I've spent more time than is probably healthy thinking about why certain people build real, lasting wealth over their lifetimes, while other people with equal or sometimes greater incomes, arrive at 60 with a lot less than they expected. And the answer, when you really dig into it, almost always comes back to the same place. Not income, not investment strategy, not some proprietary financial move that only people with accountants know about. It comes back to one habit. A quiet, unsexy, almost invisible habit that most people either never build or build too late. And by the time we get through this, I think you're going to understand exactly what it is, why it works the way it does, and honestly, why the fact that it sounds boring is the whole point. Here's the thing I want to start with, because I think it reframes everything that comes after it. We have a cultural story about wealth that goes something like this. You earn more, you have more. Income is the engine. If the savings account isn't growing fast enough, the solution is more income. A better job, a promotion, a side hustle. Something that puts more dollars into the top of the funnel. And look, I'm not going to tell you income doesn't matter. It does. More money coming in creates more options. That's real. But here's what the data actually shows. And this genuinely surprised me the first time I sat with it. There is almost no correlation between income and net worth at the individual level. None. You can find people making $60,000 a year with $400,000 saved at 45. And you can find people making $180,000 a year with $40,000 saved at 45. And a car payment that would make you wince. The income didn't build the wealth. Something else did. And that something else is consistency. Specifically, the habit of taking a defined, automatic financial action on a defined, automatic schedule, regardless of how you feel about the market that week, regardless of whether a big expense just hit, regardless of whether the news cycle is making everyone around you nervous. Just the same quiet thing happening in the background every single time. That's it. That's the habit. And I know that sounds almost insultingly simple, but stay with me, because the reason it sounds simple and the reason it actually is the most powerful wealth-building behavior available to regular people are connected. The simplicity is not a bug, it's the mechanism. Let me explain what I mean by that. Most people, when they think about building wealth, imagine it as an active endeavor. You research investments, you watch the market, you make smart moves at the right times. You stay informed and nimble and strategically positioned. And that mental model, while it feels sophisticated and engaged, is actually working against you. Because every time you make an active decision about your money, you introduce the possibility of an emotional interference. And emotions, when it comes to financial decisions, are almost always expensive. Here's a way I think about it. Imagine you're trying to fill a bathtub. The tap is your income. The water is your wealth. But the tub has a drain. And the drain isn't your expenses, it's your decisions. Every time you pause an investment contribution because something else came up, that's the drain opening a little. Every time you move money out of the market because things feel uncertain, the drain opens. Every time you tell yourself you'll start saving more seriously next month, next quarter, after the holidays, the drain just sits there, quietly doing its job. The people who build the most wealth over time aren't the ones with the best tap. They're the ones who figured out how to close the drain. And the way you close the drain is automation. You build a system that moves money from your paycheck into investments before you ever see it, before you can decide whether this month is the right month, before you can have a moment of weakness at a car dealership, or a convincing conversation with yourself about why a kitchen renovation is actually a form of investing.
Now, I want to spend some time on the income trap, because I think this is where a lot of genuinely smart, hardworking people lose years of compounding without ever realizing it. The trap works like this. You get a raise, and the raise is real and earned, and you deserve it. And almost automatically, almost without conscious decision, your life expands to meet it. The apartment gets a little nicer, the car gets upgraded, the restaurants you go to are a tier better, the vacations get slightly more ambitious. None of this feels irresponsible. In fact, most of it feels reasonable. You earned more, you're allowing yourself slightly more. That seems fair. But here's what actually happened in financial terms.
Your income went up, and your savings rate stayed flat or dropped. The raise didn't build wealth. It built a more expensive life. And now the baseline is higher. And here's the insidious part of lifestyle inflation that nobody warns you about. It almost never goes in reverse. Once the baseline moves up, it feels like a loss to move it back down. So you're now locked into a more expensive life that requires a higher income just to maintain. You're running faster to stay in the same place, and the gap between your income and your actual wealth keeps quietly widening. Let me show you what this looks like in practice with two people. Call them Marcus and Daniel. They're the same age, 28, and they're starting their careers at roughly the same income, around $65,000 a year after tax. Marcus does what most people do. He contributes enough to his 401k to get the employer match, which is good, better than nothing. And then he lives on the rest. As his income grows over the years, his lifestyle grows with it. New car at 31, nicer apartment at 33. By the time he's 40, he's making $95,000 a year and genuinely feels like he's doing well. His savings rate has hovered somewhere around 8 to 10% his entire working life. Daniel does something different. At 28, he sets up an automatic transfer. Not a huge one. He moves 20% of every paycheck into his investment accounts before it hits his checking account. He never sees it. He builds his life around what's left. And then he does something that looks small but isn't. Every time he gets a raise, he increases his automatic transfer percentage by a few points before he has a chance to adjust his lifestyle to the new income. By 32, he's at 25%. By 37, he's at 30%. His lifestyle is comfortable, not Spartan, not dramatic. He takes trips, he eats well. He just never let the baseline inflate to eat his progress. By the time Marcus and Daniel are both 48, earning similar incomes, the gap in their net worth is not modest. It is, depending on market returns, somewhere in the range of $400,000 to $600,000 in Daniel's favor. Not because Daniel was smarter, not because Daniel had better investments or got lucky with a stock pick, because Daniel built a system and Marcus built a lifestyle. Here's the part that I think is worth sitting with for a moment. The habit I'm describing, automatic, consistent investing on a schedule you never deviate from, works through two separate and compounding mechanisms simultaneously. The first one is the obvious one, compound growth. Money invested early grows, and then the growth grows, and then that growth grows. A dollar invested at 28 is worth dramatically more at 65 than a dollar invested at 40. Not a little more, not marginally more. We're talking about a difference that can be measured in multiples. The math on this is well established, and I don't want to dwell on it too long because most people already know it conceptually, even if they don't feel it viscerally. But the second mechanism is less talked about, and I'd argue equally important. Consistent investing builds a lower cost life. When you automate savings before spending, you build your entire lifestyle on a smaller income footprint. Your housing expectations, your social spending, your sense of what's normal, all of it calibrates to less. Which means when you eventually stop working, or when you choose to stop working, you need a smaller portfolio to sustain yourself. You win twice. You accumulated more, and you need less. That combination is not incremental, it's exponential. I also want to address the thing I know some of you are already thinking, which is some version of, this sounds great, but I genuinely don't have much left over after covering my actual expenses. And I want to take that seriously, rather than just waving it away with a motivational phrase about cutting lattes. Because for some people, the margin really is tight, and pretending otherwise is condescending. But here is what I'd push back on, gently. For most people, the feeling that there's nothing left over is not a fixed reality. It's an artifact of the order of operations. They spend first and save what's left. And the amount left over after spending is almost always functionally zero, because spending has a nearly unlimited appetite when it's given first access to income. The habit I'm describing flips the order. You save first. You invest before the money touches your daily life. And then you build your life around what remains. When the saving happens first, two things happen. You find that your life adjusts to the smaller number more easily than you expected. And the psychological experience of saving shifts from painful to invisible. You can't miss what you never had access to.
So how do you actually build this habit? Because I want to be specific here and not leave you with an inspiring concept that doesn't have an on-ramp. The first step is to calculate the real number, not what you think you're saving, what you actually saved last month. Take everything, 401k contributions, any brokerage transfers, any meaningful movement into savings. Divide it by your take-home pay and write that percentage down. Don't judge it, just know it. The second step is to pick a target percentage that is meaningfully higher than where you are right now, but not so aggressive that it feels like punishment. If you're at 8%, going to 15% this month is ambitious but doable. Going to 40% overnight is a setup for abandonment. Progress over perfection, every time. The third step is the most important one, and it's the one that most people skip because it feels too mechanical, too small to matter. Automate it. Set up the transfer. Have it happen on payday, before your spending money is accessible. Make it a background process, not a monthly decision. Because if it requires a decision every month, you will eventually make the wrong decision, and the wrong decision always looks reasonable in the moment.
The fourth step is to protect the system from raises. The single best time to increase your savings rate is the moment a raise hits, before your lifestyle recalibrates to the new income. Even directing half of every raise toward increased savings rather than spending dramatically accelerates the trajectory without requiring any real sacrifice in daily life.
I want to come back to where we started. That parking garage, that paycheck notification, that quiet background hum of a question. I'm doing okay, so why doesn't it feel like it's adding up? Here's what I'd say to that version of you. It's not adding up because the system isn't built yet. Not because you're not earning enough. Not because you made some catastrophic mistake somewhere. Just because the habit, the quiet, automatic, boring, extraordinarily powerful habit of consistent investing isn't running in the background yet. And the beautiful thing about that is it means the problem is entirely solvable. Today. Not when you get the next raise, not when the market stabilizes, not after the holidays. Today, you can set up one automatic transfer, one percentage of one paycheck. And that small, invisible, almost embarrassingly simple action is the beginning of a system that will, over time, build more wealth than almost any income increase you could realistically chase. The people who end up financially free didn't get there because they earned more than everyone else. They got there because they built something that ran without them, quietly, in the background, every single payday.
for years. That's the habit, and it's available to you right now.
If you found this useful, hit subscribe, drop a comment with where your savings rate is right now, and like this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.